Olathe Spark Starters Podcast, where it is our mission to inspire innovative ideas and empower educators to cannonball into personalized professional learning. On episode 7, we will discuss summer PD opportunities, must-read books around the big three, and different ways to engage with colleagues over the summer.
Well, I brought some books today, and I'm Janelle from Madison Place, and the books that I brought today are kind of all around the growth mindset. Our staff this year did a book study on a book called The Growth Mindset Coach by Annie Brock and Heather Hundley, and it's been a good one to, it's a month-by-month book study, so it'd be good for a staff to do together. There's a chapter for each month, and then some goals and lessons that go with each of them that you could do with your class. I also read The Inquiry Mindset by Trevor McKenzie, which is set up in a way that it kind of talks about you as the inquiry teacher and then different pillars of inquiry that you could find out about. And then I have one of my favorites here. It is by Joe Bowler, and it's called Mathematical Mindsets. And if you teach math, whether you teach kindergarten or high school, she is a professor at Stanford University, and she has been really influenced by Carol Dweck, who wrote, what'd she write, people? She wrote the Mind book. What is it called, friends?
Growth Mindset?
She didn't write the Growth Mindset. She wrote the Growth Mindset, right? Yes, Carol Dweck. Yes, of course.
Yeah. That's
anyway,
what you meant all along.
It is.
Right.
Anyway, they have worked together, and she talks a lot in this book about how everyone is math smart. It's just a matter of how you kind of look at it. And then one of my favorites, also having to do with the mind, is Teaching with the Brain in Mind, and what we as teachers can do to get the most out of the brains that we have in our classroom each day. So those are kind of the books that I suggest. And then I am going to sign up with Pernille Ripp this summer to do a Passionate Learners book study. And you can find her on Twitter at Pernille Ripp or on Facebook as well.
Yeah, Janelle, I'm so glad you brought up Pernille. I'm a huge fan of her. She's really restructured how I view literacy practices in my classroom. And even though she is ELA specific, I think you can apply a lot of her strategies in all content areas for all grade levels. So she's written Passionate Learners, but I most recently read Passionate Readers. And it really talks about the power of choice with student reading and how we have to provide students time in class to read, and how conferring with students about their reading is so deeply powerful to developing not only their identities as readers, but really mastering the skills associated with reading. Another book, if you're really passionate about literacy like I am, is No More Fake Reading by Barrett Gordon. She talks about merging the classics with young adult and modern texts, and again, yes, ELA specific. However, I love her mindset in taking what you know, what you're comfortable with, and what you're familiar with, and marrying it with some new innovative practices to really get you gradually out of your comfort zone. And I think Barrett Gordon's actually going to be at summer conference this year, right?
I was just thinking I was going to plug that in if you didn't mention it. Yeah, Barrett Gordon will be at summer conference.
Yeah, talk about another great summer learning opportunity. So from your guys' experiences, what have you loved about summer conference?
I tend to like the kind of the variety that you see in a lot of stuff that you can kind of go in for a lot of different reasons. You can kind of go in for practical knowledge. This is I want to learn more about reading strategies. You can usually find a session about something like that. And then if you're kind of wanting that, philosophical, this is some things you can think about for classroom management and stuff like that. There are always a lot of things you can find at summer conference.
I think a fun story, if you guys didn't know this, Tara Martin was at the Ed Camp that the amazing Ariel Jankard helped create.
Yay.
And she shared the story that she first heard George Kiros a few years ago at our Olathe Summer Conference, and afterwards she walked up to him, and no one knew who Tara Martin was. She worked for a district, and she walked up to him, and he said, "Hey, let me help you get onto Twitter." She'd never been on Twitter before. So then he followed her so she'd have followers. And so then she was sharing ideas with him, then he connected her with Dave Burgess.
Wow.
And that's how this whole thing, started happening for her, was just from that opportunity to have a professional learning and network with someone. So I think that's an important part of summer conference, is meeting people and getting to know people and learning from each other.
And following them on the Twitter, friends. Let's do it.
I also like going to summer conference because I like learning about things with other people, especially people I don't necessarily see all the time during the school year. So I like meeting up with my friends and going to sessions together, so that then you can have conversations afterwards. Hey, did you see this session, this was a really great idea. Let's bring it back to class.
And it kind of shifts your perspective when you go with people who aren't your general, like, people, which I like, you know.
And I really think it's cool that, like, you can go and you're like, this is cool, and I can go pick all my own sessions. It's kind of like you get to personalize, you know, whatever you need, you go pick the sessions. But they also ask for people to submit proposals to present, which I think is super cool because you can go and listen to some of your colleagues present on things they're really passionate about or really knowledgeable about, and you can connect with other people across buildings too, which is awesome.
Isn't that how you found out about the book you brought today?
It is, and as a matter of fact, Janelle, thank you for mentioning that. I brought the book, Grading Smarter, Not Harder, by Myron Dweck. A little bit about me, like 4 or 5 years ago, I was challenged about my grading practices, and initially kind of made me mad, honestly, because I really felt like I had it all down, and the person that challenged me on that is, she's an instructional coach, and her name is Lindsay Stevenson, and being a social studies teacher, we connected, even though she was an English teacher. She just really challenged me to kind of think outside the box and really evaluate the ways in which I was assessing students in my classroom and how that lined up with my standards, which is part of our big 3, standards-based instruction. And so after I got over myself and I quit being mad about the way that she challenged me, I have completely transformed my classroom. So I don't think that kids who had me 5 or 6 years ago would recognize the classroom that I'm in right now with my kids. But I really love it, and being kind of like right over the 20-year mark, it was kind of a nice rejuvenation to my career. So this book in particular talks a lot about just thinking about and being mindful of the ways that we assess kids and grading practices and homework. And it always bugged me because I knew there was a portion of my kids who were like copying off each other for their homework, but yet I was giving them points for completing their homework, which went into their grade, and so they were getting maybe a good grade, but it wasn't really reflecting their mastery of the content. So it talks a lot about, you know, homework promotes completion, not necessarily understanding. I think that was a light bulb moment for sure. And the fact that, you know, if it's really not a reflection of their mastery, why would you grade it? So this kind of transferred into my PLC when I was at North. We talked a lot about, in my flipped class PLC, which a group of us kind of went and started together, but really had some interesting conversations about authentic assessment and standards-based grading. So I would really encourage people just to kind of check it out. On that topic, we're talking about PD stuff, and I found this strategies for educational improvement, which I've improved a lot, I hope, over the last few years. Engaging all students and teachers, and it's Friday, June 7th. It's free. It's at the KU Edwards campus. It's all day from 7:30 to 3:30. So I think I'm going to check it out. Why wouldn't I?
I will be presenting.
I was
at
going to
that.
say,
No way!
Yeah, I'll be presenting on Tell Your Story, all about using Twitter and Instagram and podcasting and that sort of thing in the classroom. Yes, so I will be there.
Nice!
Yes.
I will look for you.
Yes,
I will come
yes.
I brought the book Shift This, and I know sometimes when we talk about books that we want to read over the summer, sometimes it's difficult to be overwhelmed or not know exactly what you're looking for. And what I love about Shift This is Joy Kerr does such an amazing job of giving you baby steps and big steps depending on where you're at in order to get to a place where we're really empowering kids. So each chapter is kind of a different topic. And then at the end, she has kind of this scale of like, here are some baby steps that this topic may look like if you're trying to grow in your classroom environment. What this would look like with baby steps, or if you're already kind of made some movement, what are some bigger steps you can take, and how can you continue to hand things over to kids and empower them and feel like, make them feel that it's their classroom. And I have poured over this book. It is so amazing. And Joy Kerr is an amazing person on Twitter. She is real. She's super honest. If you read her blog, I mean, she's very real. I would highly encourage you to read this book if you're looking for some ways to kind of empower your kids and really let your kids take some ownership in the classroom.
I pulled in a book that I've never read before that I thought, I'm going to read this summer. And so I'm really interested in business books, which aren't directly tied to education, but I think a lot of those strategies can be brought into the classroom. I'm reading a book called Blue Fishing by Steve Sims. And so this guy is basically he finds things for celebrities. So like if a celebrity wants to have a yacht that has a hot tub full of only green M&Ms, like he makes that happen. I don't know why you would want that, but like he that's what he does, is he just makes things happen. And so I really want to read it because I'm really interested in this idea of making things happen in the classroom. And a lot of his strategies for getting these unique opportunities is he just asks. And so he talks about some of the ways that he asks for things and gets things to come into being. And he talks about how some of the more old school writing a handwritten letter actually makes a huge impact on getting things done. And so I'm excited to read this book, but again, I've never read it before. So,
and that's kind of interesting because I kind of did the same thing of like, not oddly enough, not necessarily in the same way, because the book that I was kind of thinking about hasn't actually hit the shelves yet. So this is, it's called Adrenaline Rush, and it's from John Meehan. For those of you that haven't followed him on Twitter, find him. He's fantastic. He's responsible for bringing like the Egg Dash Challenge is a big one. He does a lot of QR break-ins, and his tagline for his book is game-changing student engagement inspired by theme parks, mud runs, and escape rooms.
Cool.
The first time I ever heard about him was he did a whole like Fortnite themed like unit. And I don't remember what the lesson was for, but he tied it all into like Fortnite graphics.
It was the Marshmallow Challenge, and what's really interesting is I actually started my year with that this year, and it was a great way. It was a good team builder to get everybody into stuff, and I'm excited. I believe it's going to hit the stores though next month. I think it's coming out in the next couple of weeks, so that's kind of one of my top. I really want to get a hold of that book, and I really want to read it over the summer.
Okay, Tina, would you mind sharing what you talked about earlier, kind of about the importance of, knowing your foundation and starting with the standards and, where it comes together, the pedagogy and the content. I love how you said that earlier, because I think a lot of us are talking about great ideas and things to do, but we also have to remember that we have to know where we need to begin and the foundation that we need.
So we're talking about how sometimes people can feel a little bit intimidated by the Teach Like a Pirate because it looks so demanding, or it takes a lot of work and a lot of forethought, and a lot of people feel like they don't have the time necessarily to do that every single day, so they might just say no. But I think also we could look at it and say, well, that doesn't apply to my classroom for whatever reason. And what I think is really important to consider is that the development of a strong pedagogical content knowledge takes time. So that merging of the content that you know and the standards that you want kids to be able to meet and the pedagogy and the way that you teach it has to be really a great match, because you can try one pedagogy with a certain content on a certain day and it didn't really work very well, but you can use that same strategy another day and it works perfectly. So don't be afraid to try things out, but also consult other people and talk about what are some maybe best content to put with that pedagogy that you want to try. So if you have an idea, it might not be something you can try tomorrow, but maybe in a month and a half from now, you have the perfect content coming up to marry with that. But just understand that pedagogical content knowledge development takes time. And so it's going to be something that's going to be a lot of trial and error to figure out how to best marry those two together.
It makes me think of the Ron Clark Academy. One of the teachers there says, I can't be Ron Clark. I can't stand on the table and dance like him and be like him, but you all have to learn to be the baddest version of yourself. And it kind of sounds funny to be the baddest version, but I think everyone in this room is truly the baddest version of themselves. So what advice would you give to others to say, well, you can't be me, but you need to find yourself? Like, how did you find who you are today?
I love what Julie said about feeling like, when someone gives you pushback or someone, gives you a challenge, she really dove deeply in reflection and recognized, hey, I'm feeling angry that someone's challenging me, but being okay with, I recognize this, but maybe this is a sign that something needs to change. And you made that change, Julie, and now your students are better off for it. So I would just encourage teachers